Okay. We are going to look at dragon genetics. It is going to get us starting to do Punnett squares and how to predict what offspring two organisms are going to have. So let's look at this. We have our paper here. I'm going to pull up on Cami so I can write on it. But then we also have, let me find it here. Oh, let me go. Here we go. We're going to do this. All right, so here's the PowerPoint. So as I walk through this, the dragon genetics, it says in dragons, the allele for fire breathing is dominant. Dragons can be fire breathers or non-fire breathers. Show the genotypes and phenotypes of all possible dragons. So let's see here. Show the genotypes and phenotypes. So what I would have you write if we were at school here, genotypes are represented. This is going to kind of be like notes for you guys. Are represented as letters. And phenotypes are represented by appearances. A lot of times it's appearances because a lot of times we're talking about what you can visually see, but it doesn't necessarily have to be that. It could be your blood type. I can't see that, but it's what's represented there. So I think a phenotype as your physical. So pheno-physical, the pH and the pH, is kind of how I remember those two, and genotypes then are your letters. So underneath here, I'm going to show all genotypes and all phenotypes for these. So I'm going to write phenotypes, and I'm going to go out here to the side and write phenotypes. Now, one type, so if we're just going to pick a letter, any letter. So we're going to start out super simple here and just look at one thing. So I'm going to use an F for fire breathing. I could use a B. I could use an A. I can use any letter I want, but I tend to use a letter that, first off, that you can tell a difference between the capital and lowercase, like S and C. Sometimes, depending on how sloppy you write, kids have trouble being like, oh, was that capital or was that a lowercase? So an F, I know if it's going to be capital or lowercase. So a genotype could be two capital Fs. And this is every combination I can have between a capital and a lowercase. All right, so those are the three combos I can have. I can have two capitals, I can have a capital and a lowercase, and I can have two lowercase. Now it tells me that in dragons, the allele for fire breathing is dominant. Dominant means big, so I'm going to write that above here. You write the same thing. All right, so this means capital letter, which capitals are big and dominant is, dominant. So I think of you being bigger. So dominant. So your recessives then would be lowercase. So if you have two capital letters, that's dominant. And it says that fire breathers are dominant. Once again, here I have a capital, and as long as I have a capital in there, it's dominant, and it's going to be a fire breather. Now here's where I have two lowercase, and I talked a little bit about this with the corgis. If I have two lowercase, then it's going to be the recessive version, which would be non-fire breathing. All right, so those are your three genotypes, and your three phenotypes are physical or appearance. So this is going to be important that you can do this for each and every problem. Even if we're not having to write it out every time, you're going to need to know this. All right, so let's look at number 2. Oh, sorry, guys. Now, these notes we would have taken probably approximately 2 days on. So you have 2 days to do these notes, whether you stop now and finish them tomorrow, or you go halfway and then finish the other half, or if you want to sit and do them all at once, that is up to you. Let's see here. Here we go. Okay, so here's number 2. If a heterozygous fire-breathing dragon is crossed with one that does not breathe fire, what proportion of their offspring will be fire breathers? All right, so there's some things I need to talk to you guys about in here. So first off, something that I'm going to have you write down, like I said, these are used as your notes. So you want to write these down. Heterozygous means different. All right, we have something called homozygous, which means same. So heterozygous could be, two examples of that, could be, I'm sorry, not two examples, but you could, heterozygous is different, so you're going to have a capital and a lowercase. Whereas homozygous means same, so it's either going to be two capitals or two lowercases. So you have the same types of letters there. All right, so if a heterozygous fire-breathing dragon, that's going to be this. You're going to have capital F. And I always do the X, so one parent is a capital F and a lowercase f, and we have two, right? We get one from mom and one from dad. And they're crossed with one that does not breathe fire. Well, look up here at number 1. My non-fire breather is recessive, so it's got to be two lowercase f's. So here are my two parents. I have a parent that is heterozygous, right here. I have a parent that cannot breathe fire, right here. So once I have that, I'm going to draw a Punnett square. So let's see if I can set this up easily here. So I'm going to draw a Punnett square. So here's my Punnett square. It's going to look like this. Now, once again, we are starting out easy. So we will get into something that's a little bit more complicated than just a simple Punnett square, but we need to make sure we have these basics first. So I'm going to put one parent. Maybe this is mom. And I'm going to put her up here, capital F. So each of her genes, because there are two genes here, you have a gene that is dominant and you have a gene that is recessive and is being hidden. And you're going to put one on each box. Now, let's say this is dad on the side here. I'm going to put one of those lowercase, and then I'm going to put the other gene down here in the other box. Now remember, our children get one. So these are my offspring, these boxes. These are showing the probabilities of what kind of offspring I'm going to have, what kind of babies I'm going to have. So maybe this baby gets the capital F from one parent, and gets the lowercase f from that one. Remember, we get one from mom, we get one from dad. So this child would be what's called heterozygous or different. Now another option would be lowercase f. I'm just saying this is mom. I don't know if it is, but lowercase f from mom, lowercase f from dad. So this child would be a non-fire breather. Now this is not specifically children. This is saying what are the chances? All right, this one again, maybe you got a capital from mom, and you got a lowercase from dad. And then this last one, a lowercase from mom, and you get a lowercase from dad. So you can see what I'm doing here. I am bringing, let's see if I can do my drawing here. I am bringing down and across. I am bringing down and across. Same with this. Change my colors here real quick. I brought this capital F down and this lowercase f across. And then I'm bringing down and across. So that's how I'm filling this in. So once I have this filled in, how many offspring will be fire breathers? Well, if I had 4 kids, out of those 4 kids, I would expect 2 of them to be fire breathers. And these 2 would not. So my answer here, the answer would be 2 kids, or you could say 50%, right? Each box is 25. So we got 25, 50, 75, 100. So 2 kids or 50% of your kids you would expect to be fire breathers. Now that does not mean that is what's going to happen every time. Alright, so you may have a kid, it's like flipping a coin. Yes, 50% of the time I should get heads, but what if I all of a sudden start flipping a coin and 10 out of 10 times I get tails? Right? It's just like people having kids. 50% of the time you should have a girl versus a boy, but we know of families that have 5 boys or maybe 5 girls. It's just odds. Okay, so this is just a prediction. 2 kids or 50% of them are going to be fire breathers. It's my prediction. Number 3. So let's look here. Number 3, if 2 heterozygous dragons are crossed, what proportion of their offspring would you expect to not be fire breathers? Now I have to go back and I have to, these words, we're going to keep seeing these words. You're going to see me saying them over and over again. Heterozygous means different. So, what this means is that our parents, we have a parent, one parent that is heterozygous, so a capital and a lowercase, and our other parent is also heterozygous, which is a capital and a lowercase. A lot of times they will call this the F2 generation. They say the F1 generation would be 2 capitals and 2 lowercase, and then all your offspring would become heterozygous, and now they will say this is F2. We'll talk a little bit more about that later. So anyways, we got these 2 dragons, so let's draw our Punnett square. I'm going to do my rectangle here. I'm going to put my lines in here. Alright, there we go. And then I'm going to do like I did a second ago. You're going to take, maybe this is mom. I always just say mom first. I don't know why. I don't know if it's because I'm a mom. But I'm just going to go with that. Let's say this is mom. I'm going to put mom's, one of her genes, up here and above one box. I'm going to put her second gene, this lowercase, above the second box here. Now, dad, the second one, I'm going to put one of his genes, which is the dominant, because it's capital, beside one box. And I'm going to put his recessive gene down here beside the other box. So remember, I'm going to bring one down and bring dad's across. So this child would be 2 capital F's. This one, and I always do my capitals. Guys, you could put the little f first. You could do this, bring one down and bring the capital F across. You will never see me do that. I don't know why. I don't know if it's just because this is how I was taught. But you will always see me put the capital first, no matter where it's at. So, capital F, lowercase f. I would not count it wrong if you had those flip-flopped. That would be fine. So, if you had lowercase, then capital, I'm not going to count that wrong. Now, here I'm going to bring this capital F from mom down, and this lowercase from dad across. And on this last square, I'm going to bring the lowercase from mom down, and bring that lowercase from dad across. So I do not want a fire breather. So let's look back up here. So who do I expect to not be fire breathers? I want my non-fire breathing dragons. I need this right here, 2 lowercase f's. That's the only option that will give me that. So if I look at this is the only one. Oh, sorry. It's not going to let me highlight it. But anyways, this is the only one. Oh, it might there. This is the only one that is not going to give me a fire breather. So I'm just going to change its color here. There. Alright, so this would be 25%, or you could say 1 out of 4. Now, as we get going with this unit, you'll see me, I will just start using just percents. Sometimes we'll say the 1 out of 4, but eventually we'll get to where we just use percents, so 25%. All right, once again, you guys can stop right here if you want. You can, because we're getting ready to go into a new trait. So if you think this is a good stopping point for you, go ahead and stop and pick this up tomorrow, because number 4, we're going to start with, we're not going to look at fire breathers anymore. We're going to look at wings. Or like I said, if you want to sit here and just complete the rest of your notes right now, that is also fine. So right now we're going to do wings. So let's look at this next problem. Also in dragons, wings are dominant trait. So if you have wings, that means you have a capital letter somewhere. One of your 2 letters is a capital. Maybe it's both, but at least one of them is. If you crossed 2 wingless dragons, what proportion of their offspring would you expect to have? All right, so let's look at this. So the first step is it doesn't ask you to do this like we did in number 1, but I'm going to go ahead and do this with you so we can see what we're working with here, okay? So we have wings are dominant. So as long as I have a capital in there somewhere. Is it smaller on me? I don't know what it's doing. Equals wings. There we go. So if I have a capital in there somewhere, it is going to be wings. Now, when I get to lowercase, I don't have that dominant trait. It is wingless. Now, I could have used W's for this. Once again, I can use whatever letter I want. Let's do something different because I think later on that might mess us up. This is a tricky one. So sometimes when you write W's, you have to be very exaggerated because look how they look so similar, the capital from the lowercase. If you look at that, you can look at that and you can almost question, okay, did I have two lowercase? Do I have two capitals? What do I have? So maybe pick a letter or be very exaggerated. Like when I use this, when I write this, I'm very exaggerated with it. So I'll show you that here in a second. So now let's look at this. I am going to cross two wingless dragons. So that means wingless are two lowercase. Look right here. So there's mom. I'm going to cross them with a dad that is wingless also. Let's go ahead and draw our Punnett square. It's going to give us our predictions here of what's going to happen with our dragons. Get my boxes up there. All right, so here's what I'm talking about when I do this. So let's say the first one is mom again. And it's two lowercase, so I would make just a really tiny W. A really tiny W. Dad is also wingless, so he's got lowercase w, so I'm going to make really tiny W's. Really tiny W's. Now, if I were to have a capital, I might do something like this and then put my lowercase as tiny as I can get it. So I'm very exaggerated so that I do not get confused because they can look very similar. All right. So when I go to do this, I'm going to bring mom's gene down. I'm going to bring dad's gene across. I'm going to do that for every single one here. Mom's gene down, dad's across. Mom's gene down, dad's across. Mom's gene down, dad's across. And you can see that all your kids, all your children are the same. This is exactly the black corgi question. Can we have two black corgis that have a mixed litter? We cannot. Look at this. This is like my one black corgi and two black corgis. They would have all black corgis. It's the same question here. So the question up here says, if you cross two wingless dragons, how many of their offspring would you expect to have wings? Well, 0%. So my answer to this question is 0% have wings. All right. Just like in eye color, now some of the like eye color, hair color, skin color, that is so much more complicated than this. You have more genes than just one gene playing into that. But that's why when you have two blue-eyed people, you should not be getting like this dark brown-eyed kid. Now you can have variations of blue, but you should not be getting like that dark brown color. You shouldn't be getting pigment at all. Let's see here. Number 5. Let's look at the next question. Two winged dragons produce an offspring that does not have wings. What are the genotypes of the parents? So I have two winged dragons produce an offspring that does not have wings. So let's look at this. So basically they're telling me that when I have this Punnett square, let's go ahead and draw this out. They're telling me that I have two winged dragons. So if I have a winged dragon, let's look up here. If they have wings, they have to have at least one capital letter, right? That's the dominant trait. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to put a capital for mom, and I'm going to put a capital for dad because they have wings, so they have to have at least that. So let's see here. If I were to fill in this box, I can go ahead and fill in that box. There's that. Now here's the thing. What is the second letter. How do I get a small w, two little w's? Well, let's look. If I bring mom's W down here, that's going to be a capital, right? Like this kid is going to have wings. If I bring dad's big W across here, right, this dragon is going to have wings. So this box right here needs to be two lowercase. So how do I get two lowercase right there? Well, mom has to have a lowercase w. Dad also has to have that lowercase w. That's how I get across. And down I get two lowercase. Now this kid right here will be heterozygous. There's the capital W, so they still have wings. So what are the genotypes of the parents? So the answer to that would be capital W lowercase. There's mom crossed with dad, who is capital N lowercase. That is your answer right here. All right, this is also like the corgis. This is how we had mixed litter of corgi puppies. You had mom that had a red gene and a black gene, and you had dad who had a red gene and a black gene. And so then they get that mixture. All right, let's look at number 6. If a purebred winged dragon is crossed with a purebred wingless dragon, what proportion of their offspring will be winged and what is their genotypes? All right, so we've got some more vocab here. Purebred, and we can at times see hybrid. Now, it's very similar to this heterozygous and homozygous. So it's just another way of saying this. So I'm going to have you write purebred. And think about this. If you have a purebred dog, like parents are the same. So purebred means same. Hybrid, if you have a hybrid of some sort, it's going to be different. Okay, so purebred means same. So there's two options for this. You can have two capitals. I'm just picking a random letter to use, or two lowercase. So I have the same two capitals or the same two lowercase. Now, hybrid means same thing as heterozygous. So you're going to have a capital and a lowercase. So let's see, I have a purebred winged dragon. So let's look up here. Winged. So it's going to be either two capitals or a capital and lowercase. So since it is purebred, it's going to have two capitals. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and write mom's, two capitals, with a purebred wingless. Well, wingless only has one option. Wingless is going to be two lowercase. So I'm going to cross that with, we're going to say this is dad, has two lowercase. All right, so now I'm going to do my Punnett square. Get my lines in here. All right, so now I'm going to put mom on top. Two capitals. One capital goes on one column. The other goes on the second column. And then dad, we're going to put his lowercase. There's one gene goes in that row. Second gene goes in that row. So now if you look, mom comes down, dad across. I have capital lowercase, capital lowercase, capital lowercase, capital lowercase. So it wants to know how many of their offspring will be winged and what is their genotype. Well, capital and a lowercase, your dominant gene is there, which means it's going to be wings. All right, so 100%, 100%, oh my goodness, percent are winged. And their genotype means letters. It's going to be a capital and a lowercase. So this is your answer right here in the blue box. Last one. Number 7. A dragon with wings. Now they use D's instead of W's, which is fine. Is crossed with one that does not have wings. So here's the thing. If you do not have wings, it doesn't matter what letter you use. If you are wingless, you have two lowercase. So we're going to go ahead and stick with D. So does not have wings. So this is going to be lowercase, lowercase. What percentage of their offspring will be wingless? All right, so let's go ahead and do the Punnett square. Let's do a line going down, a line across. Now let's say that this is mom. I'm going to put the capital on that side. I'm going to put the lowercase in the other column. Now it doesn't matter where I put these. I could have put the lowercase right here. It does not matter. Now dad, I'm going to put one of his genes in the first row. I'm going to put his second gene in the second row. Just so happens the genes are the same. Alright, so now we've got one offspring that could be heterozygous, but they would have wings, right? Wings are dominant, which means you have to have a capital letter. Here's an offspring that has no capital, so they're wingless. Here is an offspring that has that capital letter, so it's going to have wings. Here's another offspring that has two lowercase, so no wings. So what percentage of their offsprings will be wingless? The answer to that is 50%. Alright, so this is just getting us introduced into the terminology, the language to use. You'll hear me say purebred, hybrid, heterozygous, homozygous. You're going to have to know what those words mean because when we do these word problems, that's how you'll read them a lot of times. It's not going to give you your letters like it does right here. Okay, it's just going to tell you, hey, a purebred winged dragon, and you have to know that's two capital letters. You have to know that it's purebred and what letter wing, that wing's dominant. So you need to know your dominant, recessive. You need to know what these words mean. So this is an introduction. These are notes. Keep these. Have them out because they're going to help you as we go through this section. Don't lose them. All right, if you have any questions at all, let me know. Get a hold of me. If we are on remote while we're doing more of this stuff, I will set up some Zoom meetings so you guys can have, if you have any questions or need anything, we can have a set time to do that. And if you can't make it on that set time, let me know and we'll do another time. All right? So I hope you guys are doing well, and let me know if you need anything. Bye.